Hey folks, what's going on, everybody? So today I want to talk about what I believe to be the single most important thing in the arsenal, in the toolbox of success and mental health. I kind of want to see what you guys think I'm going to say. You could drop that in the comments, but I'll tell you right now, in my opinion, the single one and most important thing for your mental health and for the path to success is gratitude, being grateful. Now, if you don't understand gratitude at all, I'm probably not going to explain it well to you in this video. But if you're already on that path of gratitude and you're working on your gratitude practice, you're working to be more grateful, I'm going to share my path a little bit, and hopefully there's some breadcrumbs that you can pick up on. So I'll tell you first off, since I was little, I remember my parents, they raised me to be polite. They told me to say please and thank you. It's funny, I remember being a little wise guy, my mom always saying, what's the magic word? What's the magic word? And I would always say now, again, just being a little wise guy. But the lesson stuck, and I generally say please and thank you. And I believe that was the foundation for the gratitude that I have now. In addition to that, the next step, my mother worked for UNICEF. She has a nonprofit organization called For Our Children's Sake. And through her work and I remember spending hours and hours at the United Nations and listening to conferences and going through their bookstore and whatnot, I got to see how bad the world can be and how much trouble there is in the world. And this was always a reminder to me that things could be worse and to be grateful for what I had. I've also had the privilege to travel places where people had very little, and witnessing this firsthand obviously shifts your perspective. In New York City, it's difficult to last a day on less than $20. And then to go places where people don't make that in a year will certainly teach you a thing or two if you're paying attention. Now, another little childhood lesson. I had the privilege of going to Japan. My mother actually went a few years prior to when I went. And I remember her telling me about a gratitude practice where people would not waste a single grain of rice on their plate. Now, in terms of eating everything on your plate, I'll save that for another video on nutrition. But overall, this reverence is what I try to bring to everything. I'm grateful for every grain of rice. And, I was raised also Unitarian Universalist. I get a lot of my spiritual beliefs from Eastern philosophy, from Native philosophy. And I've learned to have a reverence for everything that exists, right? And it's true especially if you understand the science of it to some extent, as best we can. The fact that even a rock exists is amazing. It's a miracle to me. So now, as we're getting older, as I'm getting older, getting through life, I've had to face some challenges, and luckily I have this gratitude practice to fall back on, and I'm also finding a need to strengthen this gratitude practice and understand it more. So again, I start by just being grateful for what we have, right? But then you still encounter challenges in life. And what do you do with your gratitude practice from there? So a couple things. First off, you can only think about one thing at a time, right? So if I say, there's a term for this, maybe you could remind me in the comments. I got to look it up as well. But your brain is unable to think about a negative or a non-thought. So if I say don't think about pink elephants, you basically have to think about pink elephants. You can't not think about that. So when you find yourself struggling with your thoughts, struggling with your circumstance, oftentimes by switching to a wavelength of gratitude, it forces negative thoughts or thoughts that aren't conducive to productivity or positive action. It forces those thoughts out of your mind because you're occupied by focusing on something that you're grateful for. Now, by continuing to do this, in a sense, you could rewire your brain. In many ways, there's this whole push for happiness, and that's another video that I'll make as well. But the fact is, we're not designed to simply be happy, right? Your brain and our belief systems, it's designed to help us survive. So it's in our DNA, we're kind of like the deer in the headlights sometimes, doing what we have to do for survival. And in our DNA, we're trained to wake up and look for, what could possibly go wrong, what threats are out there. And we're always searching for the negative. Now, this could be helpful to some extent, right? Negative thought is actually not this horrible thing that it's made out to be. Negative thought can actually help you create a better existence, a more harmonious existence. But there's also a point where negative thought overwhelms your being and takes you off the proper wavelength that you want to be on. So to rewire and restructure your wavelengths, again, I recommend finding an attitude of gratitude, right? The wavelength of gratitude. And with that, it's basically a muscle that we develop. It's a muscle that we train, right? So we start with just basically, like I said, please and thank you, be grateful for everything we have. And then there are stages of this gratitude practice and stages of this development. Now, I'll tell you a couple key things that have helped in my recent gratitude practice. For one, learning how to be grateful for negative things in our life. This is a bit of a tough one, but as soon as I figured this out, it made perfect sense because, I'm grateful for my life experiences. So despite my hardships, and I hope you're able to see this in your own life as well, the fact is, if we didn't have certain hardships, certain challenges, certain losses, certain mistakes, we wouldn't be where we are today. And hopefully where you are now is a place of growth. And if you haven't grown already from these mistakes, in this moment, as you're watching this video, you can make a choice right now and say, hey, you know what? I've gone down that road and I'm going to turn a corner right now, right? And we wouldn't get to this point of growth if we didn't have these negative things in our life. So learn how to take your past basically and say, hey, you know what? I'm grateful for the negatives that were in my life because they helped make me who I am today, which you should love. You should learn to love yourself and be kind to yourself. Another important practice is to be grateful for the small things. Just like I said, be grateful for a grain of rice. So what I find happens in business is we have this goal, we have our obstacles, our bills, and all these things that we want to get. And you need $1,000, but you only get 100. And what tends to happen when you're ungrateful is that you need 1,000, you get 100, and your mind's stuck on what you didn't get. And instead of saying, hey, thank you for this $100, you're thinking, oh man, it's not enough. I need more and this and that. And what you're doing when you're saying that's not enough, you're kind of being disrespectful to the 100 that you earned. And what you want to do instead is strengthen that muscle of gratitude and say, thank you for this dollar. Thank you for this fraction or this step towards my goal, right? And by doing that, you're going to get more of what you want, right? Basically, if you focus on what you don't want, you're going to get more of it. And if you focus on what you want, you're going to get more of that as well. So if you want more, be grateful for what you have, or else you risk losing it. And by being grateful, you're able to protect it and cultivate more of it, right? Now, understanding being grateful for the negative, that made perfect sense to me. But I still found myself struggling when it came to facing the most negative things that we encounter in our life, the traumas, the worst things. One of these things was the death of my father, right? And for a long time, despite having this strong gratitude practice, it just didn't make sense to me. How could I possibly be grateful for that? Where do I find gratitude in that? It just didn't make sense to me. In fact, it felt wrong to think about being grateful for my dad's death. One day, I forget exactly what the impetus was for this or what really inspired this, but it clicked on me one day. I realized it's not about being grateful for my father's death. It's about being grateful that I had my father to lose to begin with, right? Because you can't grieve without love, right? There would be nothing for me to mourn if I didn't love my father, if he wasn't an amazing person to begin with. So in that moment, I realized that's what I have to be grateful for, the fact that I had any time with this human being. And I encourage you to do the same. For anything that you're mourning or anything that you've lost or any regret that you have, be grateful for what was, right? Find that gratitude, get on that wavelength, as we move forward, right? On the same token, physically, I was a trainer for 8 years. I've been basically fit most of my life and active and whatnot, but I've also had a lot of injuries. I've had surgeries and whatnot. And now I'm approaching 40, and I put my health and my fitness on the back burner, dealing with family and career and other things. And it's a difficult mindset. It's a difficult place to get out of, feeling stuck physically. And what I realized again is that rather than being upset that I'm not the person I was 15 years ago athletically, I need to wake up every day grateful that I woke up, grateful that my eyes open, grateful that I have my legs and my arms, and even with my injuries and my hindrances, by being grateful for what I have, I'm able to protect it, I'm able to develop it, I'm able to cultivate it, and I'm able to develop new skills. Right? So whatever you may have, whatever abilities or disabilities or whatever you may have, I encourage you, for your own well-being and for your continued success, to find that wavelength of gratitude and use it to your advantage, right? Now, again, this doesn't mean if somebody, spits on you, kicks you in the face, oh, thank you very much kind of thing. But when you learn to do this judo, you're able to redirect the energy, transmute it, use it to your advantage, and get more out of the situation to your benefit. So this video, I don't think this was perfect necessarily, but perfection's also, I've learned to be a bit of an enemy. I'm here to just keep showing up, and I'm going to keep showing up for myself. I'm going to keep showing up for you. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Love you all. Peace.